Just a few short months ago, Formula One was in crisis. Formula One needed to change, bring back refueling, make it a spec series, get rid of all penalties, no track limit, change anything, please, just to save the sport. We now head to the summer break, and we have had 4 of the best Grand Prix we have seen in decades. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but Silverstone, fantastic. Austria, fantastic. Germany, one of the best races I think I've ever seen in my life. All something a little bit different. And then we come to Hungary, the race before the summer break, a race synonymous for lack of overtakes, for difficulty to pass, and yet we saw not only plenty of overtakes, but a race that perhaps won't be remembered for years to come, but was the first race where we really saw Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton go head to head. 2 of the best drivers, arguably the 2 best drivers on the grid, over a whole minute. I almost said second there, but a whole minute in front of the 2 Ferraris, these 2 in the league of their own today. And many times throughout this Grand Prix, I found myself thinking, my God, this really is proof that these 2 are very, very special drivers. And at the moment, they are untouchable. Yes, things went their way in this particular Grand Prix, and we're going to obviously talk about it in length today for our race review of the Hungarian Grand Prix, but I really enjoyed that one. Again, it wasn't quite Germany, where we had crashes, rain, millions of pit stops everywhere, but it was just a slow burner. And sometimes for me, I've spoke about it before on this channel, that tension that was there throughout the entire Grand Prix, minus the last 4 laps, was beautiful. Absolutely awesome. And it all started right from the very first lap. Your race result, you've seen the top 10 on the screen now. Lewis Hamilton, 7 times winners at the Hungarian Grand Prix, at the track where he took his very first win for Mercedes back in 2013. Max Verstappen, after picking up his first ever pole position yesterday, takes P2. Sebastian Vettel just managed to snatch P2 in the final few laps, overtaking Charles Leclerc. The 2 Ferrari drivers, through no fault of their own, the pace was not there in that car today. And to get 3rd and 4th, actually, I think they'll be pretty happy. But from where the team expected to be at the halfway point this season, to have 0 victories, well, I'd love to go back in time and tell everyone that Ferrari did not dominate, or have not yet dominated a single race this season. Moving on then, after Leclerc in P5 for 2 races in a row for the first time in his career, Carlos Sainz for McLaren, beating a Red Bull, beating a Mercedes. Brilliant from Sainz once again. I really cannot sing his praises enough this season. Raikkonen behind Gasly, P6 for Gasly, P7 for Kimi Raikkonen. Valtteri Bottas, we're going to talk about him in a moment when we go through the race. P8 in the end, an okay recovery. But to be honest with you, considering how much pressure he is under to keep his seat next season, not good enough for me. Not good enough for me. But of course, we're going to talk about him in a moment. Lando Norris, P9. We'll talk about him as well. Difficulty through the early phases, stuck behind his teammate Carlos Sainz. Then calamity in the pit stop for McLaren. You don't expect that from them, but that really hurt Norris's race. Alex Albon just got the final point over Sergio Perez. A little ding-dong at the end between those 2. A slight bit of contact, but Albon prevailed and picked up the final point for Toro Rosso. Right outside the points we just mentioned, Sergio Perez. Actually, I think had a really good race, did Perez. Just the strategy didn't quite work out for him and just missed out on points. But considering where he started, not too bad from the Mexican. P12, Nico Hulkenberg went backwards in the race. Was optimistic yesterday after qualifying P11. Thought he could go forward with, I suppose, starting with fresh tyres against those guys in the midfield that started in the top 10. Didn't play out for him and finished only 2 places in front of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. P13, K-Mag, Kevin Magnussen, that is for you casual fans. Difficult race for Haas. Grosjean DNF'd, another mechanical failure. I believe that's the 4th time this season he's had a mechanical failure. They did manage to get half a race out of that car, and to be honest with you, Grosjean, I have no idea what strategy Haas were trying to employ. They were halfway through the race and he was already on a two-stop. So I think for them, potentially they could have been trying to understand why the original Australia spec car works sometimes and why the new package sometimes works better, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm hoping they fix that and hopefully they've got enough data for the rest of the season. But K-Mag P13, Ricciardo P14, and to be fair, the Honey Badger made some cracking moves early on in the Grand Prix, overtook Giovinazzi with, let's be quite frank here, a career mode, a Formula 1 game career mode-esque dive bomb to perfection from Ricciardo on Giovinazzi, then went round the outside of one of the Racing Point cars. I believe it was, I might be mistaken there, but I think it was Lance Stroll went round the outside of turns 2. Awesome move. Plenty of overtakes in the midfield today were brilliant. But Ricciardo ends P14, starting from the back. I think he'll be okay with that. Danny Kvyat P15. I think that Toro Rosso, to be honest with you, wasn't the best car for this track. So he was up there with Albon actually. And for me, you'll find out a little bit later on. Spoilers. Kvyat got an overtake of the race for me. That battle he had with his teammate Albon was awesome to see side by side through the entire first sector. Hats off to both of them. Kvyat just prevailing there, but ends P15. George Russell P16 kept Stroll and Giovinazzi behind him, for the entire Grand Prix. I think that he can be very proud of that race, George Russell. Stroll and Giovinazzi, however, not being able to get past Russell. Questions, I think, definitely should be asked to those two. And the final driver who finished I want to call him home hero, though he's not Hungarian, but all the flags were supporting him, Robert Kubica, 3 laps down on the race leader, Lewis Hamilton. I don't think it was a strong drive from Robert today. And again, we've spoke about this in length. I wonder if there will be a change in the summer. But that's your field. The race itself. The race itself was a thriller. In different ways, as I said earlier, to Germany, it was a slow burn. And the start of the race, well, the focus was on Bottas. The Bottas had a pretty good start, was fighting with Verstappen. Then Hamilton came into play in the 2 Ferraris. Hamilton tried to go around the outside of turn 2 into turn 3. A little bit of contact with Bottas's front wing, but Hamilton got through. Then Leclerc thought, oh, I'm going to have a go. Leclerc then gets through, but almost, I don't want to say turns into Bottas, but tries to squeeze him a little bit. Bottas doesn't yield in any kind of way, which I wouldn't expect him to. Bottas then, well, it had not so much front wing damage, but sufficient front wing damage that he had to come and make a change. Change his front wing only a few laps into the race, went onto the hard tyres and tried to go really long into the race. And to be honest with you, to come back to P8, I want to say that's a little disappointing, but I think this is a circuit which is so difficult to overtake, and especially late on into the race where he'd been on tyres that were a good 50 or 60 laps old. Getting in front of the guys like Norris was difficult. Raikkonen, Gasly and Sainz, it just was too much for him. So Bottas' race was over so early on, but the fight at the front, Hamilton and Verstappen, almost the entire Grand Prix, squabbling. Verstappen was the first to come in after Hamilton had tried to really get on the back of him. Verstappen came in first, Hamilton came in second, but then got right onto the back of Verstappen, made a move through the first couple of corners up to turn 4, tried to go around the outside, an audacious move, it didn't work. Late on in the race, James Vowles, the Mercedes chief strategist, saved the day. And to be honest with you, this is why Mercedes have won so many titles over the last few years. They've got strategic calls right, and this was a perfect example today. Went for a 2-stop in a race which should have been a 1-stop, and Hamilton put the pedal to the metal, as they say. Drove flawlessly in that second stint, and that's why he's my driver of the day. No mistakes, just charging. Eventually, with a few laps to go, overtook Verstappen, round the outside of turn 1. Verstappen that had no grip left, consequently had to come in. Did get the fastest lap by going onto fresh rubber, but with a 2-stop strategy against the odds, it seemed, at one point, Lewis Hamilton took the victory. Driver of the day, as I just mentioned, it went to Verstappen officially, but I have given it to Hamilton. But to be honest with you, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, either of those two. I would love to give it to Russell. I'd love to give it to Perez, Ricciardo, guys in the midfield, even Sainz, guys in the midfield that just really showed on a track where you can't overtake, it can be possible. That being said, Hamilton and Verstappen were so far in front today. I had to give it to him. I just had to. We talk about Formula 1.5, but it was like these two were just in a complete other racing series. It was like WEC, when there's different classes of drivers, cars and teams. Unbelievable from those two today. It really was. And there's obviously going to be talk over the summer, whether Bottas is going to stay, whether he's going to be the one to take the title to Hamilton. But honestly, I think Verstappen's going to be his closest challenger now, which I'm telling you, even a few races ago, I did not expect. Race rating now, I've gone with an 8 out of 10, which I'd love to know your thoughts, because when I was doing this, I thought maybe that's a little bit generous. But saying that, for me, the fact that we had 2 Formula 1 greats. Okay, Verstappen isn't world champion yet, but I think we can all agree he's definitely got the skill to be able to be world champion. To see that wheel-to-wheel fighting between 2 greats all the way through the race, not knowing who's going to be there at the end, was awesome. And in between, when it was still building, the midfield was brilliant, and we saw some great overtakes. So it was a perfect blend for me. Again, you can have different kinds of brilliant F1 races. Sometimes it comes down to strategy, like we saw in Austria. Sometimes in Silverstone, just battling at the front is awesome to see. Germany, wet race, what tyres to go on, crashes. But today, it was all about the tension, all about a circuit which shouldn't be able to overtake, should have been a one-stop, should have been boring. And yet, I don't think it was. So I've gone with an 8 out of 10, but of course, I would love to know your thoughts in the comments below. And for the record, I've actually got quite a few predictions right this weekend, so I'm pretty proud of that. Pretty proud indeed. I got pole sitter and the 3 correct on the podium, I believe. So, yeah. I'm going to rub it in your face just a little bit longer. The Drivers' Championship on screen now. No changes at the front. It's Hamilton who leads over Valtteri Bottas, but Verstappen heading into the summer is just 7 points behind. Crikey. Sebastian Vettel almost 100 points behind Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc is already, well, I think both Ferrari drivers well and truly out of the title hunt. Pierre Gasly 63 points and is just 5 points in front of Carlos Sainz. If Sainz can snatch a P6 in the championship, oh my god, unbelievable. I mean, just looking at the gap between Verstappen and Gasly is unbelievable, but for Sainz to be right there, considering it was between Sainz and Gasly who they hired, madness. And the only change is Raikkonen overtaking Kvyat for P8. In the Constructors, no changes. Once again, this week, Mercedes still smashing it. Still, I mean, we said this so long ago, they have won the Constructors. That's 100% a given, because Ferrari, neither of their drivers are going to win the title. And Red Bull, well, they have one driver who's probably got a broken back by now. The amount of carrying he has had to do this season, Gasly is really hurting them in the Constructors, actually. Only 44 points behind Ferrari. So Verstappen, single-handedly, potentially, could overtake Ferrari, but we're just going to have to wait and see what the second half of the season brings. And to be honest, Spa, and especially Monza, should suit the Ferrari. And Sebastian Vettel hasn't won a race since Spa last season. He's almost gone a full year without a race win. You can tell I'm excited. And we're going to talk about plenty of things over the summer break. So, of course, if you want to keep up to date with Formula 1, feel free to subscribe in the summer, because there's not going to be much racing. So we're going to have to all try and group together a little bit and keep that F1 spirit going. And after the last few races, I am pretty confident we're all looking forward to F1 coming back, which at one point of the season I did not expect whatsoever. But of course, I want to know your thoughts on the Hungarian Grand Prix, because as I mentioned, it wasn't a flashy race, but it was a race of 2 halves for sure, and it was a race that I think most people expected Verstappen to win. And after yesterday, Lewis Hamilton qualifying P3, seemed a little bit down in the dumps after Germany, all the odds seem to be against him. And yet Hamilton, this is exactly what he does. He did this last season, just after the summer break, when Sebastian Vettel won in Belgium. Hamilton seemed to be on the back foot, and he did exactly what a true champion and true Formula 1 legend does, and just turn it up that extra notch. Can he do it this year? That is the big question. He is in front in the championship at the moment, but we've seen in the last few races, there are chinks in his armour. Next time is Belgium. At the end of August, we've got a mighty weight on our hands, but it's going to be worth it for sure. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the Grand Prix. Plenty of stuff here on the channel throughout the summer break, so keep your eye out for that. There will be an update in the mailbox all about the summer, so if you want to keep up to date, I would look out for that on Wednesday. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.